You need a theory of change.
It gets people involved in politics.
Has anyone had any problems with
how are you going to bring in
I think there's a whole room of people eager just to kind of get their pennies worth in. So,
Collectivism is a label that should be quickly consigned to history, in my opinion.
When I say collectivism, I want to refer specifically to that combination of marketing with computer science.
What was interesting was all the speakers, all the debaters, they all kind of defined the problem differently, in my opinion.
Digital activism shouldn't supplant other forms of activism.
I was actually really glad that they managed to find some people to make the counter-arguments. It's good to see a diversity of opinion. I didn't find them very convincing.
I thought all the speakers had interesting points, but I didn't fully agree with any of them.
I thought the best point that someone made was, in Egypt, the tools didn't make the revolution, no, but the revolutionaries used the tools.
Why didn't Mubarak go in 2005?
I have no idea.
The tools are secondary, and really they should be judged in terms of those impacts. Was it good? Did it make change happen? Did it get more people involved? Did the people who got involved have a good experience, an empowering experience that means they'll get more involved in future?
Technology does not have consequences that are at this order of magnitude. Technologies do not change society wholesale for good or for bad.
There's a real problem with the switch from real activism to very, very simple activism. And I don't really think it actually touched on the consequences of what could happen if we shift too far to simplistic activism in an online sense.
There are real consequences to people not reading their emails but signing on to things that have consequences for people in other parts of the world.
At the end of the day, I'm not going to take a position on this stage about that campaign. But I think it was a serious process, entered into seriously, pursued seriously, and it would be a terrible shame if these new institutions became as paralysed as many of our old institutions.
We're human, so we can do a campaign and get a fact or two wrong. I wouldn't get crazy about this. I mean, most of us are good people working for good causes. We haven't actually caused deaths that I know of by our online campaigns so far. We've in fact probably saved some lives.
Is volume everything? Was the difference, with Libya and Egypt? Maybe it was volume.
The petition was very important early on as offering social proof. It proved to people they weren't alone and that other people felt like them. That drew more people in. The internet and digital tools enable that kind of snowballing to happen.
Just from seeing what's happened in Egypt and Tunisia, there were people who were too scared to come out of their houses, but they took part in the Twitter campaign. And so it added this enormous weight to the campaign that wouldn't have been there if it was the usual activists on the ground. And who knows, if you've got those people on a mailing list, then you can nurture them into taking part in society in a bigger way once they see what they've been part of.
And I'm so glad 38 Degrees finally came along. There will be progressive NGOs on the left that will be smaller because you get bigger, and that just seems almost inevitable to me, and not necessarily something to lament.
Their stated objective is to get as many people to send us letters as possible so that they can write a press release. There's no denying that it currently works well for them. But here at ECF, at the gathering of the community, we shouldn't just care about them, and we shouldn't just care about now.
I'm glad that somebody's basically asked a question, which is what's next? What happens when there's 2 or 3 massive, incredibly well conversion track campaign groups, possibly none of which existed before about 2008, become the big dominant campaign groups on the left and the right in most developed countries? Because I know of 3 startups in America that are all about the fact that the politicians there just literally can't cope with the mail anymore, and it's about replacing that mail interface, just saying we politicians need you to use some other thing that means we can sort of tell who you are in some way, because we're just at this point taking all the mail and throwing it away.
Governments are not up to speed with what NGOs are giving them in terms of this just vast public expression of opinion. Well, the government's probably 10 years behind in terms of processing that information. That doesn't mean we should stop giving them the feedback from the populace. That means the government needs to get up to speed to actually listen to its populace. That's where the debate needs to go, not blaming the NGOs for rallying the public to be more educated, more engaged, more active.
If you go and do a lot of public campaigning on things such as asylum seekers or Roma and Gypsy travellers, you're not going to get a huge amount of support for what you're doing. And so actually there, the kind of activism involved is about solidarity with individuals, it's about visiting people in detention centres, and it's about direct lobbying that we do.
Amnesty tends to get thought of, if you're not involved in this, as sort of letter writing campaigns. Everyone is unique, everyone is polite, and everyone is carefully written by an individual, and absolutely none of them are spam. And they don't get counted, they often don't even get read. The point is that they get sent and there is something other than the number.
Thank you very much.